have some strugglers. Good morning, everybody. Morning. Oh, come on, you do better than that. Come on. Good morning, everyone. That's right. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to the inaugural EUC Forum User Group. If you've no idea who the hell we are, we've been this UK Citrix User Group for the past 15 years or something like that. So we decided to make a change in last year to become EUC Forum. We've merged with the AVD User Group in the UK. To make us completely vendor agnostic, so we're going to cover all the EUC vendors, but the guys will explain a little bit more of that in the future. But I just want to quickly welcome you all. You're probably sick of my face after several years, so I'm going to be sat at the front and not doing as much talking today, which is nice. So you're going to welcome Neil and Lee, who are going to cover a brief roundup of the EUC news. A few housekeeping duties. There is Wi-Fi. You've all got it on your badges if you don't know what the password is. There are plug sockets if you need to charge your phones at the desks, but certainly make the most of the day, speak to the vendors, speak to each other. These network events are priceless. So with that, I'll hand over to the guys. Thank you.
Let's go. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah, all good. All right, so yeah, my name is Neil McLaughlin. I used to run the UK AVD user group. This is
Lee.
Lee Jeffries.
I'm Lee Jeffries. I'm helping. I was always part of the CUGC meetings, so I'm up here to do the news for Citrix and VMware.
Okay, so yeah, welcome. So yeah, as we mentioned, we just combined both really, because we saw kind of a lot of the same sort of technology being used in both Citrix and Azure Virtual Desktop. So we see the way the market's changing, and it just makes sense to combine both of these into sort of one single EUC forum, which is kind of vendor agnostic. So we're going to cover all vendors essentially. So a lot more content, a lot better content. As I said, new presenters, new delegates, sponsors. So a lot more social events as well. So it's really good having more in-person events, because I think now obviously a lot of people work from home. So it's good to get out and meet people. I've certainly seen a lot more people here that I haven't seen in probably a few years. So it's good to be back, as they say. So the events, as I mentioned, we're trying to get more events. So these are the events that we've got planned for 2023. Obviously April, we're here now. In May, we're going to do a networking social, and then one in July, which I think a full meeting is going to be in Manchester, hopefully. So we're hopefully going to, if you're a Manchester City supporter, that's where we're going to hopefully having it as well. So that's not finalised yet, but that's what we're planning. So these are the expanded steering group. So obviously there's Neil, Jim, who's been doing this for a while as well. Mr. Lee Jeffries and Jay Rankin, who's in the audience as well. Myself, Shabazz, who obviously couldn't join us today. Chris, who's here, and obviously Nigel Woods as well. So we all sort of help combine and make this event happen.
Do you want to wave, gents, so everybody knows who you are? Sweet.
Cool. We just want to obviously say special thanks to our sponsors. We couldn't run this event without you, obviously, okay? So it costs money, it costs time and effort, so without you, we couldn't have it. So big round of applause to the sponsors, please. Okay, if you want to tweet out on socials and LinkedIn and all that stuff, these are the sort of Twitter handles and the LinkedIn page as well. So please tweet out and get more social connection and get more people here, because the more people that we get here, right, the better and bigger the event can be. So don't be scared to tweet out on social about what a good time you have.
Just don't tweet that one.
By the way, BYOS,
It's got UK on there.
BYOS is bring your own session. So if you've got any ideas, and now it's obviously vendor agnostic, so anything. We'll take sessions on anything, any technology. So bring a session, come and do a presentation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the presenters I've seen, which I've seen before, we really, really like having new presenters come in to give people a chance. So don't be scared of presenting. because it's a really good, it's a good way to increase your knowledge and also increase in the community. It's a really, really good thing to do. So everyone's welcoming. No one's going to say anything bad if you make a mistake or anything like that. So if you've never presented before, speak to anyone on the steering group, and we're more than happy to help you and trying to get you to sort of give you some tips and advice and guide you through it. But once you've done it once, you get more and more confidence, so it becomes easier and easier and easier. So please don't be scared.
Yeah, joint presentations are a thing as well. So if you want someone to help, by all means reach out. I'm quite happy to join. I mean, we've done that, haven't we, Neil?
We have indeed. Yep. Okay, and YouTube, so all our content will post on YouTube. All the previous content is available on YouTube as well. So just have a search for EC Forum on YouTube, and also the UK AVD user group, and also the UK Citrix user group, and you find all the previous content on there as well.
And today's event is being recorded for posting on YouTube as well, so
yep.
Have to make notes of.
Okay, so feedback forms. Obviously, we want to make the event the best that we possibly can be. So please be open and honest on your feedback forms and submit those towards the end of the day as well. Do we have any prizes or anything for the feedback forms?
We do have a bottle of champagne at the end of the day for all the completed. So we'll do a raffle for completed feedback forms at the drink station.
Okay, yeah. Cool. All right, and if they're flying here and they drink the bottle of champagne and get kicked off the plane, you get an extra prize as well.
Yeah, sleep over in your airport.
Do you want to cover the agenda, Luke?
Yeah, can do. So this is the agenda. We've got some good sessions, so it's split up. I'm not going to go through every line because that would be boring, but we have a mix of community sessions and vendor sessions. And again, we've tried to be quite agnostic. We've got different technologies in there. We did have a chap due to fly in and do a session. Unfortunately, he wasn't able, so Neil is filling his shoes with a session on AVD security, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
There's a couple of tweaks to the timing, so the feedback forms are slightly different to reality, so we'll keep putting this agenda throughout the day to see.
Cool. All right. And yeah, submit your session. So if you want to present, just submit it, we'll review it, and then hopefully accept it, and then we'll see you at a future session. Okay, the news. So over the next 20 minutes, we're going to cover the news. Obviously, previously this event has been very Citrix focused, so it's been a lot of Citrix news. So we're going to try in the next 20 minutes fit in the news from every single vendor involved in the EUC. So I don't know how we're going to do this, but we're going to try, right? Well,
yeah, but it needs to be understood, Neil. So.
Okay, I also found it difficult as well because obviously this is the first one, is like what time period do I cover? So we've not covered everything, and so we're just trying to cover like the major releases from each vendor. So I apologise for any vendors if stuff's missing off there, but I can't cover stuff for the past 2 years because we'll be here all day. Okay, so first of all, we're going to go through the Microsoft news. Okay, so AVD news. So again, I've not covered everything. Probably this is the major releases from the past of like 2 to 3 months. So the latest one that's just been released is the Virtual Desktop app is now available in the Windows Store. Now you probably sat there thinking, why is that such an exciting thing? Well, the biggest issue that you get with Azure Virtual Desktop is disconnected sessions. And more than 9 times out of 10, that's because they've not updated the client and it's on an older version. Microsoft push out new client versions about every 2 weeks with lots of bug fixes and enhancements, stuff like that as well. So if you're doing an MSI install, it means that an admin has to install the AVD client, but if we're pushing it out from the Microsoft Store, it means it's installed for the user, and therefore it auto-updates itself as well. So, big improvement, and that means that the user will hopefully always be running the latest AVD client, which will hopefully improve the stability of the service as well, and a better user experience.
Is it not feature parity? Yes. Yeah.
There you go. Say that without moving my mouse. Okay. Azure Image Builder is now available in the Azure portal. So who here has used Azure Image Builder? How was it for you? Yeah, okay. Historically, Image Builder has been pretty difficult to use. It's obviously been PowerShell based and you get no logging and it's just a horrible experience. So it's now been imported into the Azure portal. So if you want to use that to build your images, you can do. Obviously a bit nicer experience. I've never really used it in anger, I'll be honest with you. So I can't tell you how this makes it better. But sure, if you want to chat afterwards to Jim, he'll tell you all about it. But it's just an easier way to sort of create and manage your images.
Sounds like a topic for a future presentation, doesn't it?
It does. So
Hacker versus AIB versus
yeah,
solutions.
absolutely.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I think you just did, Neil.
Congratulations. Okay. All right. Multimedia redirection is now GA for Azure Virtual Desktop. Now, for those of you in Citrix, you're probably thinking, well, we've had this for years. Yes, you have. So this has been in public preview for AVD for a number of months now, and it's now GA. It works a bit different than it does the way with Citrix. Obviously, Citrix redirects everything. So with AVD, what they've done is they've picked the top 30 most used websites in the world, and they're the ones that are redirected. But there is an option which you can configure, which will automatically redirect all websites, but it's not proving and tested. So,
what browsers does it support?
Edge and Google Chrome, I think.
Must be, yeah. They're basically the same, aren't they? Well, same engine.
Yeah. So basically, you have to install a plugin. So a plugin sits on the host, and a plugin sits on your client, and then it just automatically redirects the content. Works really well. Definitely recommended if you're running Azure Virtual Desktop because it massively reduces the number of obviously CPU and memory usage on the hosts, especially if you're using a lot of like multimedia content and like, flash redirections, that kind of thing. Okay, that's all I put in for AVD because I could have sat here all day, but we wanted to make sure that we covered all content and we're fair to other vendors as well. But if you want to chat more, come and speak to myself, Jim, Toby Brown, who's here as well, and they'll be more than happy to tell you about all the latest and greatest of the Azure Virtual Desktop. Okay, so Windows 365. So Windows 365, again, we've got quite a lot of new content. So Windows 365 Frontline is in public preview. So Windows 365 by default is a per named user license application. Okay, so if you've got like 10 users, you need to buy 10 licenses. They're irrelevant of whether you use them or not. So what Microsoft are releasing is something called Frontline, and that's basically concurrent license. Okay, so you can buy a license with one license equals 3 users, so that provisions 3 separate VMs. So it basically, hopefully, will reduce the cost of using Windows 365 and allow a proper concurrent licensing. Now, the only problem is Microsoft haven't actually told us how much it's going to cost. So whether it'll cost the same, less, we don't know yet. But hopefully it will be less, so it should make it cheaper and better to use for Windows 365. They're also going to give you some additional features, so you can monitor sort of your license usage and give you a better experience to try and log those users out who aren't using it, because obviously if you stay logged in, you're consuming a license. So you will only, when you log off, you will give back that license. So obviously you need to make sure your disconnects and timeouts stuff set up appropriately, and they're going to help you do that within the 365 portal as well. Custom name templates. If anyone's ever worked on a large enterprise project, they will know how important naming convention is. So previously, it was pretty random what your cloud PCs were called. It was CPC and then hyphen and a random name. So within Windows 365, you can now give it a custom name. So that's really important for sort of large enterprise environments. You need that for governance and stuff like that as well. Sounds really simple, but trust me, people moan, and it probably has stopped a number of projects as well. Windows 365 tags as your firewall. Again, just makes it easier to deploy. So if you do use Azure Firewall, you can just use the new tag, and that will automatically create all those firewall rules for you. So you don't have to sit there in the portal and manually type everything in. And also they'll be updated as well automatically, so you don't need to update your firewalls because they'll be done for you. Okay, and that's me done for the Microsoft stuff. So you've got 50 minutes.
To go back one, I have been quite out to Microsoft that seems to be an error in the documentation. So by default, all actual firewall tags don't have spaces, but somehow these all end up with spaces. But I think that's a documentation bug. There's none of the other tags have spaces, so just be cautious if you copy the documentation.
Cool. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
What's you, mate?
I get the fun ones, so I've got VMware and Citrix. And it's too small up there on that TV, so... Okay, so there wasn't actually that much for VMware, to be fair. I don't think a lot's been going on there. So NSX load balancing is now available with VMware Cloud. We've got end of support for Horizon 7, just in case you're still running that. So you need to be aware that that's dead at the end of the month. And then we've got features for Horizon version 8. So I tried to just pick highlights because I went over like the last 3 months, and I'm never going to have enough slides, but turns out I actually did have enough slides. So TPM support, it's all quite similar actually between the two sets of vendors. They're all doing hybrid Azure AD join with SSO, and that's supported on their non-persistent versions of virtual desktops. The VMware optimization tool has actually been updated. It's currently ahead of the Citrix optimizer and has support for Windows 11 latest. One of the big things is Mac activation is now supported for non-persistent variants, whereas actually it might have worked before, you might have put a script in or something to jimmy it, but it is actually now supported. And then feature parity with Teams optimizations for the Microsoft stack. So basically whatever AVD has, the other vendors have got too now. I don't know if anybody knows about app volumes, but that's recently had a big update. So there's a lot more features on that. So one of the biggest things was published apps on demand. So the integration between Horizon and app volumes now means that you can publish your app volumes as an app. So you don't have to sort of do any automation in the middle. So I went to vSphere because I ran out of features on Horizon. And I didn't know which products, really, we should dig into for VMware, because they've got tons, including all their sort of containerization products and automation products. So I went for vSphere instead, and then I thought I could do a bit of a product parity thing with Citrix. So vSphere configuration profiles, you can now have a configuration profile for an ESX host. So, and you can apply that at a cluster level, so every host will be configured the same when you just drop it into a cluster. That was a bit like desired state configuration for Windows. I thought that was pretty cool. Lifecycle Manager is a thing that does updates for ESX hosts. That's now standalone on a host, so you don't need vCenter anymore to be able to apply updates to an ESX host. You've got the ability now on ESX, if you're using GPUs, to mix the profiles up. So usually you will have a profile for a GPU, which will be a certain number of cores for the GPU, and then a certain amount of memory. You can now mix the CPU variants. So as long as it's got the same memory for each profile, you can actually mix up those profiles, which is actually very good. It's really flexible and enables you to sort of plan that out a little bit easier. Green power usage. So ESX now has monitoring to tell you how green it is. Go on, Adam.
Quick one on the GPUs. My understanding was that single NVIDIA card could only host a single memory configuration.
Yeah. Yes, correct. So you can mix the CPUs in the profile, not the memory.
CPU and RAM configuration, or just CPU?
You can mix the number of CPUs in a profile as long as the profiles that you're using all have the same amount of memory. So if it's 8 gig of memory, you can have 2 cores, 4 cores, 6 cores, 8 cores, however it splits. All running on the same card, all on the same host. That's it. That's it. As long as they've got the same memory, yep, you can mix them between different machines.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with every spec on them at the moment. So.
Okay. So yes, green power usage. So you can now see how much power you're saving with your physical hardware. Okta Federation for vCenter, that's self-explanatory. So if you want to log in, you can federate with Okta to do that. Quick boot for secure systems with TPM. Fault tolerance with TPM, which essentially means it will move between hosts during high availability failover. And then NVIDIA, go on. 10 minutes. Cool. Yep. Before, if you were using NVMe for a host, you would have to shut the VM down before you made any changes. You can now do that. Hot plug, which means you don't have to shut it down. That's it, Jim. So I wanted to spend as much time on VMware because my first slide for Citrix is this one.
I think we're going to be here for about an hour now.
Yeah, so out of these 10 minutes, you've got 3 minutes to throw things at me. Does everybody know about Citrix licensing changes and what's...
Yeah, move on.
Up and all right, cool. Well, essentially,
Just meter from Citrix, other than just meter from Citrix here, or is no? Oh, they're anyone from Citrix here?
Terry's here.
Yeah, he's networking, though, it doesn't count.
He does. There's a few points in here. All right, so Citrix have made some changes. They brought out something called a universal license. The universal license enables you to run Citrix anywhere. So you can run the on-prem version in the cloud if you want to, as well as having cloud licenses. So it's not either or, you get both for a universal license. The downside in this, if you're over 1,000 licenses, then you do not get to renew your perpetual maintenance. So if you've got perpetual licenses, you will not be renewing them when they next come up for renewal. You must trade up to either subscription or universal licenses. Yeah, perpetual is not really perpetual, yeah, because you have to pay for maintenance. So in that sense, Neil, actually it's not really that much of a big deal if you put it like that, is it? But these are the changes, essentially, that are coming up. So if you have Citrix licenses, bear this in mind and talk to your account manager. I have added a point at the bottom. In the next licensing server, you have to have it check into Citrix, okay? So the license server will send telemetry data. That means you are compliant. You have to check in every 90 days. Now, obviously, if you install the latest license server, that's fine. It's the version of Citrix that you're on, okay? So the latest release will talk to the license server. If the license server has not checked in 90 days, you're not compliant. It doesn't say whether or not it will kill your sessions or anything like that. I don't think it will, but you need to do that now.
And do we know the cost of this universal license?
For God's sake, Neil. I don't know if anybody knows the cost of the universal licenses. I don't. I haven't been able to get any quotes for it yet, so I'm sure it's coming. So Citrix updates, which I'm going to rattle through really quickly because Chris has got a couple of funny slides that he needs to do.
On that licensing check-in, what happens in the dark side?
Good question. There are some, you can upload the information manually. So you can extract it and upload it manually. And you will have to do that, yeah. Maybe some sort of scripted automation job. It would probably be there, but yeah. It'll be fine. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, it'll be fine. So there are some new recommendations for cloud connectors. Various changes in Citrix Optimizer for certain things. You need to go on and have a look at the article. I've put some things on here. If you actually Google cc-scale-and-size, you will get to the article that you need. So I mentioned that the feature parity is pretty much there. You'll notice Mac activation for MCS. There is support for a load of Azure stuff, and Citrix are doing a load of cool stuff with provisioning in Azure with MCS that enable you to do lots of cool things, including like merging identities with different products in there and everything, so you don't have lots of duplicate entries, as well as saving you money by allowing you to change storage tiers and stuff like that when the machine shut down. So it's all good stuff. So I'm going to hop to Web Studio, I think. So the Web Studio that is in Citrix Cloud is now available on-prem. You will notice that feature parity starts to happen between on-prem products and cloud now that there's a universal licenses that enables you to run the two, and updates to Teams optimization to be feature parity with AVD and all the other vendors. Yeah, that's a good question, actually, Dave. I think I put asterisks where they were feature parity between other vendors. But I'm glad you picked up on that.
There was some caveat about Teams.
Okay.
Point out on the cloud connectors, Citrix are changing their certificate just to change.
Good point.
Make sure you update your CAs and stuff. That changes in May, I think, it's pretty soon.
Yes, sorry, Neil's right. Yeah, there is a manual update that you need to do for your cloud connectors to grab the latest root certificates for the certificates for the cloud connectors. If you don't do that, and I'll try and come and see me, I'll find the article when I sit back down, and if this is relevant to you, just come and see me, I'll give you the details. But if you don't update them, they won't talk to Citrix Cloud, which would be a problem. So, NetScaler updates. VPX 50 and 200 are no longer for sale, so they're end of sale. It wasn't 200, was it? 25 and 15? The lower ones. 10s and 50s. Sorry, I got that wrong. Perpetual licenses are no longer there either, so NetScaler is also moving to a subscription-based model. No massive surprise. So vSphere 8 support in the latest 13.1 release, updates to the libraries for endpoint checking and all your different expressions, better performance in GCP, and support for Azure DV5 series machines. I've got a bit on App Layer and Zen Server. There's not a lot there. So, you know, Zen Server, the big one is you now need authentication. You have to actually tell Zen Server about your Citrix Cloud account to get updates. Otherwise, you won't get any. And for app layering, Windows 10 and 11 and Silverlight's been taken out of the management console. But that happened quite a while ago. So I think that covers it. And I'll hand over to Mr. Marks.
Thanks for giving me 30 seconds. Yeah,
Sorry, bud. I'm really sorry. Yeah.
Before I start, it's worthwhile, for those of you that don't know, almost all of the vendors we're talking about are in the room. So you've got Toby and Jim from Microsoft. I've seen Steve McGovern from VMware. Please talk to these people. They're not here to sell you stuff. They're here because they believe in power of community. So if you're a customer or a partner, this is your chance to speak to the people that really know what they're talking about rather than the people that are paid to tell you things. Yeah? Really important stuff. And the same is true here. AWS, we've got representation from We've got representation from AWS in here as well. So we've got Andy Wood. I can't see him, but he's here. Also, he's over there. So feel free to rack his brains about some stuff. So let's start at the top. AWS have released a thing called Workspaces Core. For those of you that are customers, you may not have heard about this, but essentially it means that any kind of VDI vendor or large enterprise can utilize the AWS backend that they've developed for Workspaces to integrate into their own kind of VDI product. So it allows perhaps a vendor who is used to delivering on-prem resources to utilize the backend of AWS Workspaces seamlessly via API. So that's really cool stuff. I think VMware are using that now, WorkSpot are using that now, and a couple of others as well. Speak to Andy if you're interested in that. Nerdio, I can't believe the Nerdio guy's going to shut down and I need to deliver the Nerdio news. How crazy is that? But that's in public preview now. One of the big pieces of news is they're developed for Azure Stack HCI, so they're now able to take what you would have done, all that goodness in AVD, bring that on-prem with Nerdio. NetApp, did anyone use NetApp Spot PC? Good, it's dead. They were in the Gartner Magic Quadrant at one point. They acquired a company called CloudJumper. It was called Spot PC because it used Azure Spot instances, which every enterprise knows are really reliable instances you can rely on every Monday morning. So that's dead. Nutanix Frame, like a lot of these vendors, there's a lot of development going on SAML and SSO and all of that kind of stuff. So Nutanix Frame is no different there. One of the things they've done, I don't think anyone's from Nutanix here, but I was there for 4 years. If anyone wants a bit more info, I can kind of talk to you about Nutanix Frame. They've got in their images both NVIDIA and AMD drivers so that you can, a customer can use an NV series VM in Azure without having to worry too much about whether that's an AMD GPU or an NVIDIA GPU. The images will work with both. Parallels Desktop, I work for Parallels. Frank Burson is here also, works for Parallels. Probably the biggest news for Parallels is it's the only authorized way of running Windows 11 on ARM. So to you and me, that means Mac Silicon. So M1 and M2 chips is the only authorized way currently of running Windows 11. Parallels RAS. Parallels have introduced a Citrix migration tool. So I can automatically take configuration from a Citrix environment and pass that into Parallels. That's a great option for POC. For those Citrix customers who have just found out how much universal licenses is. We've also got UDP support across the board for VDI. Obviously, that also means support for for short path into AVD. And they've got MSIX app attach support across all platforms. So I can have one app attach image, and I can deliver that into an RDS server. I can deliver it to a VDI host and directly into AVD as well. Also, cost optimization for Azure Storage has just been released too. That will work for AVD and VMs you have inside Azure Infrastructure as a Service. WorkSpot, one of the WorkSpot announcements is they now support AWS Workspaces Core right at the top, but they also now have template VMs that can be domain joined. I don't think we've got anyone from WorkSpot here. So any questions, feel free to let me know. Questions, I can pass them on to the WorkSpot guys themselves. Lastly, in other news, you thought you knew what EUC meant. Yeah, I will challenge you. Go to your favorite search engine and type in EUC. The majority of results will not be what you think. The majority of your results will be electric unicycles. Enjoy your day.